The control environment, defined in Common Criterion 1, CC1, forms the bedrock of every SOC2 assurance program. It represents how governance, ethics, and leadership create a culture that enables effective controls across the organization. CC1 connects intangible values like integrity, accountability, and tone at the top to tangible outcomes in policy, process, and oversight. The goal is to demonstrate that management doesn't just declare commitment to trust principles, but embeds them in daily behavior. A well-designed control environment aligns business commitments with governance practices, ensuring decisions at every level reflect the organization's ethical stance and risk posture. In this sense, CC1 is the anchor upon which all other trust services criteria rest. At the heart of the control environment is a commitment to integrity and ethical values. This begins with a clear code of conduct that defines what ethical behavior looks like: fair dealing, respect for confidentiality, and zero tolerance for corruption. Leadership must model these expectations consistently. When executives embody the values they promote, employees internalize them as part of daily culture. Effective programs pair these values with formal disciplinary mechanisms that are applied fairly, ensuring accountability without favoritism. Conflict of interest disclosures, reviewed regularly, prevent compromised judgment in procurement, hiring, or partnerships. By codifying ethics and demonstrating fairness, organizations show that trustworthiness is not aspirational, it's operational. Board and oversight structures bring independence and objectivity to governance. Whether through a formal board or equivalent committee, leadership must include voices capable of challenging assumptions and escalating concerns. Security, risk, and privacy should be represented at this level, ensuring that strategic decisions account for potential impact on commitments. Audit or risk committee charters define purpose and authority, while scheduled meetings and documented minutes confirm consistent engagement. Independence is key. Oversight bodies must have access to management information without interference. A board that reviews metrics, exceptions, and incidents regularly reinforces both accountability and transparency, hallmarks of a mature control environment. Clarity in organizational structure ensures that responsibility and authority are distributed effectively. Reporting lines should be visible and documented, with clear escalation paths that prevent confusion during incidents or audits. Segregation of duties, especially across finance, operations, and technology, reduces concentration of power and helps detect errors or fraud early. Each key function, from IT security to human resources, must have an identifiable owner accountable for control performance. This transparency builds resilience. When every domain knows its mandate, governance becomes proactive rather than reactive. An unclear or outdated org chart is often a warning sign that accountability may be eroding. A genuine commitment to competence distinguishes organizations that can sustain assurance from those that only document it. Each role must have defined skill requirements and performance expectations tied to risk. Hiring standards, including background checks, confirm trustworthiness before access is granted. Once onboarded, employees should receive ongoing training, both to maintain certifications and to adapt to evolving technologies and regulations. Competence also means continuous evaluation. Performance reviews should measure not just technical outcomes, but adherence to ethical and security standards. A capable, well-trained workforce translates governance ideals into reliable control execution. Accountability is enforced through measurable mechanisms of performance and consequence. Objectives and key results, OKRs, should incorporate risk and compliance goals alongside business targets. Incentive systems must reward secure and compliant behavior, not just speed or revenue generation. When violations occur, consequences should be consistent, reinforcing that no role is exempt from responsibility. Remediation owners must be identified, progress tracked, and completion validated. Visibility of accountability through dashboards, reports, and leadership updates creates a feedback loop that drives continuous improvement. Governance becomes tangible when expectations are measured and consequences are real. Policies, standards, and procedures represent the formal backbone of CC1 governance. A structured hierarchy ensures consistency from high-level policy statements down to operational runbooks. Version control and approval workflows confirm that updates are deliberate, not improvised. Policies must be accessible and communicated to all employees, ensuring awareness at every level. Exception handling processes should document deviations, associated risks, and compensating measures, culminating in leadership approval. This rigor turns written policies into living frameworks that evolve alongside the organization, enabling compliance to scale without losing coherence. The organization's risk culture and escalation model defines how issues surface and how management responds. A healthy environment encourages open reporting. Employees should be able to raise concerns without fear of retaliation. Clear thresholds determine when problems require leadership attention or board escalation. Anonymous hotlines or reporting tools add accessibility and privacy, building confidence in the system's fairness. Response timeliness and transparency determine whether the culture supports continuous improvement or suppresses uncomfortable truths. Mature programs view escalation as a strength, not a weakness. It signals awareness, integrity, and control maturity. Defining roles for security and privacy establishes accountability for specialized domains. Named executives, such as a Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, or Data Protection Officer, DPO, carry the authority to enforce compliance with frameworks and regulations. Product and platform leaders integrate these principles into design and development, ensuring security and privacy aren't afterthoughts. Coordination between engineering, legal, and operations teams ensures alignment between technical and governance goals. When every domain understands who leads, who advises, and who supports, risk ownership becomes actionable and governance flows seamlessly from strategy to implementation. Formal governance forums create predictable mechanisms for oversight and decision-making. Steering committees review strategic initiatives, risk registers, and audit findings, while change advisory boards, CABs, assess proposed modifications for potential impact. Incident review boards track postmortems, identifying lessons learned, and assigning improvement actions. Vendor management councils oversee the performance and risks of critical suppliers. Each forum should have defined agendas, charters, and documented minutes. Governance isn't a set of spontaneous meetings. It's a structured rhythm of review and decision that ensures leadership continuously engages with operational reality. Performance and metrics provide the quantitative side of governance. Key risk indicators, KRIs, and control performance metrics must have clear owners and review cadences. Leadership scorecards summarize trends in incidents, policy violations, or audit results, providing insight into governance effectiveness. Tolerance thresholds, such as maximum acceptable downtime or unremediated vulnerabilities, define when management must act. Recorded actions and follow-ups ensure accountability for outcomes, not just awareness. Metrics transform abstract governance into measurable progress, enabling informed decisions that strengthen both compliance and culture. Finally, documented authority and independence preserve the objectivity of oversight functions. Those who test controls or manage audits must operate free from managerial pressure, with unfettered access to relevant data. Policies should grant them authority to escalate findings to executive or board levels when needed. Whistleblower and independence protections reinforce credibility, ensuring that reporting is candid and unfiltered. Independence in testing and verification builds confidence not only for auditors but for customers who rely on the organization's self-assessment. Governance maturity is defined not by how problems are hidden, but by how fearlessly they are reported and addressed. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Effective recruitment and onboarding governance ensures that every new hire enters the organization through a well-controlled, security-aware process. Training must begin immediately and tie to role-specific risks so that employees understand not only what is expected, but why it matters. Each new hire should formally attest to the code of conduct, data protection policies, and acceptable use agreements before being granted system access. Access provisioning should occur only after all prerequisites, such as background checks and training completions, are verified. During the probation period, managers should monitor adherence to security and ethical standards, providing feedback early to reinforce expectations. When onboarding governance is consistent, culture becomes self-reinforcing. Every hire joins a system already grounded in integrity and accountability. Maintaining ongoing training and awareness is just as essential as onboarding. Over time, habits fade, technologies evolve, and threats change, so learning must remain continuous. Periodic refresher courses reinforce foundational knowledge, while targeted content addresses new systems or evolving risks. Many organizations use phishing simulations, tabletop exercises, or scenario-based learning to make awareness tangible and memorable. Completion rates and assessment scores should be tracked, but true effectiveness is measured through behavioral change, fewer policy violations, faster incident reporting, and stronger cross-team collaboration. Each policy update should trigger related training to ensure the workforce stays synchronized with governance evolution. Continuous education transforms compliance from obligation into everyday reflex. The connection between compensation, incentives, and ethical behavior often determines whether governance ideals survive in practice. Performance reviews should reward employees who uphold security and compliance standards, not those who cut corners to achieve short-term goals. Compensation structures can include measurable compliance objectives, timely remediation of audit findings, completion of mandatory training, or improvement in key risk indicators. Leaders should be evaluated not only for results, but for the methods used to achieve them. When ethical decision-making is tied directly to professional growth and recognition, governance shifts from policy enforcement to value reinforcement. Conversely, perverse incentives, rewarding speed at the expense of control, undermine the very tone at the top that SOC 2 seeks to measure. Strong issue and remediation governance keeps organizational accountability visible and traceable. A centralized issue register captures audit findings, incidents, and self-identified gaps. Each entry includes a severity rating, assigned owner, and target remediation date. Progress tracking dashboards provide visibility to executives and, when necessary, to the board. Verification of closure should include evidence, screenshots, logs, or reports confirming the control's effectiveness after remediation. Overdue or recurring issues require escalation and explanation at governance forums. By treating issue management as a core governance function, organizations ensure that problems don't quietly accumulate beneath the surface of day-to-day operations. Vendor governance intersections reinforce that the organization's control environment extends beyond its physical walls. Critical providers must meet approval criteria aligned with internal governance standards, financial stability, security certifications, and operational maturity. Performance reviews and periodic risk reassessments validate that vendors continue to meet these expectations. Contracts should include clauses reflecting governance principles, audit rights, incident cooperation, and data protection commitments. If vendor incidents occur, escalation protocols must define who is notified, when, and how decisions are documented. Vendor governance not only protects operations, but mirrors internal accountability outward, ensuring that every partner participates in the culture of trust. When policies cannot be followed exactly, structured policy exceptions and risk acceptance procedures ensure transparency. Every deviation must have a documented rationale, a defined expiration date, and compensating controls to minimize exposure. Renewal or closure of exceptions should occur through formal governance review, ensuring leadership visibility and informed decision-making. This discipline prevents temporary exceptions from becoming permanent gaps. It also reinforces that risk decisions belong at the right level. Leaders accept risk explicitly, rather than allowing it to persist implicitly through inaction. Risk acceptance logs and monitoring dashboards serve as both evidence and reminders of accountable governance in practice. A healthy whistleblower and speak-up culture is one of the strongest indicators of effective governance. Confidential reporting channels, such as hotlines or online portals, must be available, tested, and well communicated. The organization should maintain a formal non-retaliation policy that protects individuals who raise concerns in good faith. Every report must be investigated through documented procedures with defined timelines, and outcomes should feed back into governance metrics. Analyzing trends in reports, by department, region, or category, can reveal early warning signs of cultural or control weaknesses. When employees believe their voices matter and their concerns are handled ethically, governance ceases to be a top-down exercise and becomes a shared cultural value. The governance evidence set provides the tangible artifacts auditors and stakeholders use to verify that CC1 principles operate effectively. This includes governance charters, organizational charts, board and committee minutes, and records of key decisions. Codes of conduct, policies, and training logs demonstrate ethical commitment and workforce competence. Dashboards showing metrics, tolerance thresholds, and follow-up actions prove continuous oversight. Exception registers and remediation logs show that identified issues are addressed, not ignored. Together, these documents tell the story of a governance system that is active, transparent, and auditable, a hallmark of SOC 2 maturity. Sampling expectations for CC1 define how auditors test the control environment in practice. They may select board meeting minutes to confirm frequency and content of reviews, or training records to verify completion rates within the audit period. Policy approval and version control samples demonstrate adherence to defined governance cycles. The issue register provides examples of problem identification, assignment, and resolution. Each sample connects governance documentation to real behavior, confirming that oversight is not theoretical but consistently executed. Understanding how auditors sample CC1 evidence helps organizations prepare proactively and maintain continuous readiness. Recognizing common gaps and anti-patterns helps organizations strengthen weak areas before audits expose them. Frequently, policies exist but lack enforcement or measurable metrics. Critical domains like privacy, security, or operations sometimes lack clearly designated owners. Incentives may unintentionally reward shortcuts, leading to rule-bending behaviors. Other times, internal audit or compliance teams lack the independence or authority to challenge management decisions. These gaps reveal where tone at the top falters and must be corrected. Addressing them before an audit not only improves outcomes, but also fortifies the ethical core of the organization. Governance maturity progresses through identifiable stages. In the early phase, processes are ad hoc, dependent on individual discipline rather than structured oversight. Over time, organizations evolve into documented and measured governance, where roles, policies, and metrics are formalized. Advanced programs integrate governance into performance incentives and predictive analytics, where metrics forecast emerging risks rather than react to them. At the highest level, governance becomes a continuous improvement culture, an engine of learning that drives product trust, customer satisfaction, and resilience. CC1 maturity transforms compliance from a checkbox exercise into a living system that sustains organizational integrity over time. In conclusion, CC1, the governance and tone at the top criterion, defines how ethics, accountability, and structure shape every other aspect of SOC 2. A strong control environment fosters clarity in responsibility, fairness in execution, and transparency in oversight. Its evidence lies in documents, metrics, and behaviors that show leadership's commitment to doing what's right, not just what's required. When governance operates as a visible, measurable force, it becomes the heartbeat of assurance, powering risk management, trust, and continuous improvement. The next step in the SOC 2 journey turns from governance to foresight. CC2, risk assessment and cadence, where organizations learn to anticipate, evaluate, and respond to emerging threats systematically.